forensic psychology, dealing with offending, restorative justice programs. This final part of forensic psychology is talking about if you are an offender and you come face to face with the person you have harmed, the victim, can that reduce whether or not you reoffend? Playing on the idea that everybody has a conscience, and if you see that person, if you talk to that person, the family of somebody you have hurt, will that stop you from reoffending in the future? So let's have a look. So that is restorative justice. Parties with a stake in a particular offence come together to resolve how to deal with the aftermath of an offence. So some families really want to do this because it helps them move on, it provides them with closure. Others, I'm not sure they would trust themselves in that situation. So the aim of it is to discuss the crime, the harm that's been caused, and how they can put that right. So is there anything the offender can do? Believe it or not, that comes down to things like giving them money. Is there anything they can do to help the family, but also help themselves? So it doesn't come without its benefits to the offender, as we'll see. So we have a mediator, somebody who is well trained, and they are there to provide that conversation, that open dialogue between the two parties. So key features comes down to accepting responsibility. The offender has to be willing to do this. They have to accept their part that they have played in the offence, with less of an emphasis on punishment and more on rehabilitation. It's active rather than passive, so all parties are involved in all parts of the process. It's not restricted to courtrooms. The survivors, not necessarily the victims, and those responsible may voluntarily choose to meet face to face with the offender. They might meet somewhere out in the community outside of that prison setting, obviously with security with them. And the focus is on positive outcomes for the survivors and those who've engaged in wrongdoing. So it's trying to be a positive approach to dealing with offending behaviour. And we use it, you see it in schools. We have a restorative justice programme where if you send a child to the behaviour hub, as teachers, it's your responsibility to go and sit with this person, get them to reflect on the behaviour of their actions, and then ultimately you close that door, you have closure, you start afresh next time. Does it always work? No. And that partly depends on the person that you have in front of you. So the offender, depending on the crime as well, if you've got a serial offender, somebody who's a serial killer, for example, or a serial rapist, or they aren't necessarily going to see remorse, they're not going to show empathy. They might have other disorders present, like antisocial personality disorder. So it makes it difficult to generalize that this is positive for everybody involved. So we have different variations of the process. Again, all of this is A1. Not all of them involve face-to-face. It could be a phone call where they chat to them. They might write them letters. And this bit I find really interesting. It might not even be that they meet. So the offender may make financial contributions to the victim or to the victim's family, or it may involve the offender repairing damaged property themselves. So in this instance, we're talking about burglary. It could be that they, as part of their sentence, will go and repair the damage that they have committed. I mean, I'm not sure that I would trust the intentions of that offender or want to bring them anywhere back, near my property, near my family. But some do and see the benefit. Now, it can be flexible and it can be an alternative to prison or as an add-on to community service. So if they agree to take part in this restorative justice program, they may have a lesser time in prison, or they may have, community service and do this as well. So it has to be an agreement from both sides. They both have to agree that this is what they want to do. But ultimately, you can see where the downsides are going to be here. If you've got an offender thinking, oh, I'm going to get out of prison 2-3 years earlier, I'll just pretend and, pretend to show remorse and don't really care. I mean, even if they don't, and even if they put it on, that might show some support to the family. They might be able to move on, or they might see straight through it. And then it's a total waste of time. So it may occur pre-trial, so they might meet before any sentencing takes place. Like I said, it might be considered during sentencing. Oh, they've agreed, they've met, they've spoke things out. Okay, we'll look at reducing the sentence. Like I said, they might make a financial contribution. But it could also be, now this one's really interesting, it could also be in an emotional sense. So the offender can support the healing process by rebuilding the survivor's confidence. Now, I'm not sure, as a victim, you are going to feel, comfortable in that offender being like, oh, they're there, it's okay, don't worry, didn't mean to, sorry. How is that going to build your confidence back up? This is a person who's potentially broken your self-esteem. Again, it depends on the offence, so it does make it quite hard to draw very solid conclusions. Now, the RJC, last bit of A1, the RJC is an independent body whose role is to establish standards. So what they will do, they will provide support, they'll provide counselling for the survivors, they'll provide a framework that this programme has to adhere to. So it's not just off the cuff, random questions. It's very prescriptive, it's precise, as a way of trying to take away some subjectivity from how this could play out. They think it works elsewhere. Like I said, we use it in schools, workplaces, hospitals, and it can work. It can be really powerful, but again, it varies. Okay, let's talk about AO3. So we do have a strength of this programme, which does show some positive outcomes. So Shapland, 2008, the results of a 7-year research project, longitudinal study, great. 85% of survivors reported satisfaction with meeting their offender face-to-face. 78% reported recommended to other people. So that comes down to closure. They thought it was well set up, it was very professional, and I guess they felt they could move on. Only 2% said it made them feel worse. Now, what's interesting is we don't know what, offences have taken place in this sample. We don't know if it's petty theft, burglary, or if it's something more serious like, I don't know, anything like a sexual assault. So that makes it quite difficult, again, to reliably agree with those findings. However, here, not all the research is positive. It's not survivor focused, is what these two researchers have said. It can become distorted, and the survivors feel used as a way of helping to rehabilitate offenders rather than being helped themselves. So the offenders are benefiting, they're getting less sentences, but the needs of the survivor are being overlooked. So their needs are secondary, the offender's needs are primary. Okay, secondly, recidivism. Fancy word for reoffending. A further strength, we do see a decrease in those that reoffend. Meta-analysis, lots of research, 10 studies, compared offenders who had experienced face-to-face restorative justice. Their group was less likely to offend. Larger in offenders convicted of violent crime than crimes against property. So when you come face to face with that person where, I don't know, it's GBH or, you know, really violent attacks, because you've seen the aftermath, you've seen the consequence, it might kind of pull you back and make you think twice. Another review here of 24 studies found lowered recidivism with adult offenders. Because you would think, that younger offenders, this would work wonders with. And adults maybe are too set in their ways, but here we're seeing it works with adult offenders. So it has a positive impact, maybe more so for, like we said, some types of crimes than compared to others. Abusing the system, so that's where the offenders are their intentions honourable? They're just taking part because they want a lesser sentence, don't care about making amends, don't have any remorse or empathy. But there is research to show that using restorative justice for all kinds of reasons, avoiding punishment, playing down faults, is exactly what they want. They want to just use that as a way of, if anything, it's kind of like bravado as well. So, oh yeah, I'll just do it, whatever, don't care. Go in there, don't really show any remorse. And sometimes the offenders who are, I don't know, psychologically unstable, they might like coming face to face with the survivor to kind of to kind of like just make them feel worse. So play mind games. And that explains why not all offenders will benefit and a lot go on to reoffend. Okay, last thing here is research methods. I've got the answers of the next 2 slides. In your time, have practice, 30% of your A level. So the more you can practice, the better.